Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I have something cool to show you in Wavetables where we use randomization and a few different sound design techniques to create ever-changing textures. And the textures are going to have this kind of Formant vowel-y quality to them, which is achieved through a few different techniques again, which I'll show you. But before we get into that, what I want to say is I want to thank everybody for the support lately, especially on the products that I've been selling. If you don't know, I sell masterclasses for making Psytrance, or I sell a masterclass for making Psytrance, and I sell sample packs and preset packs. The links for those are in the description if you're ever interested. But the last few days have been insane, the amount of people who have been buying them and the amount of people who have kind of come forward and said that they enjoyed my masterclass or they like what I do in general. So that's kind of just it's kind of overwhelming for me right now to see how many people enjoy what I do. So thank you for that. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright, so here we have a patch which I'll quickly play, and then I'll kind of go through some of the key elements of the patch, and then we'll try to make something similar from scratch. It's this, as I said, an ever-changing texture using randomization. So let's just listen to it. Right, so this is what we have, and as you can see, there's a lot going on. You can see we have a lot of randomization going on in here. We have a lot of stuff happening kind of in here as well. There's some cool modulation happening here. We have this slice EQ doing some crazy stuff. We have all kinds of delays and the transgate setup and the bit crushers. And yeah, overall, it's a very complex kind of idea here. But the idea all stems from using randomization here. So these three randomized modulators to generate ever-changing modulation that kind of combine with each other to make some cool effects and some cool textures. So the main quality of the sound really comes down to just a few effects, which are, if I close all of these out, the bit crusher, the Formant filter, and this delay here. Maybe this one as well. Let's play with that one and see what this sounds like. So we're missing a lot of the ambience and a lot of the kind of detail in the sound, but you hear that the main idea is already there. And that's really done by having the Formant filter and the bit crusher together being modulated by different randomization things here. And that kind of creates the vowel-y, kind of almost like if it's talking kind of quality that this sound has. So now let's actually go over how I kind of made this sound from scratch. And for that, I'll keep this reference here so we can always go back to it. But I'll kind of walk you through the philosophy of this instead of just saying where each parameter should go. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the thought process behind it and what I was looking for when I was doing this. So first of all, I wanted to have a kind of strange, kind of weird wavetable or weird tone to start off with, and I didn't want to have a basic FM. So I went with a wavetable. In this case, I believe I went with the contrabass, but you can take any. So let's take like woodwinds here, and we'll have a quick listen to what that sounds like. You can hear I'm playing it at the sub octave, so that's why it's that kind of dark feeling, but this is really kind of what we're looking for. So now what we can do is to get the modulation started. Let's just open up a randomizer, and we're going to turn on the smoothness. So that's going to give it the take it from point to point in a smooth curve instead of jaggering from one value to the next. And then we're going to time sync this. We'll set it to a pretty slow value here, so it's just going to add like a very slow modulation to it. You also need to set this to unipolar. so the modulation will only work in one direction. So now you can hear we have a very basic, just wavetable morphing idea going on. But we can make the tone of it more random by, for example, setting this to the drive as well. Let's give it some spread, and we'll give this some unison. What we can do is use one of the modulation or modulator wavetables here. So let's take this band soft here, for example, which was the one that I used last time. And now I'm going to take a little bit of a faster randomizer, and we'll smooth this one out as well. And we'll set up the modulation here. So now, as you can see, if we change this around, it works like the band modes inside Serum. And by modulating the wavetable position on this value, we can change the way that's set up and the tone we create here. Again, we have to put this to unipolar. So you can already hear that we have an ever-changing wavetable, and there's never really the same sound happening twice already, because we have two randomization values, and the coincidence of both randomized values hitting the same kind of value at the same time again is pretty hard. But once you add the third one, and once you add a lot more modulation, that's going to get even harder. So let's start with, again, just kind of enhancing the sound a little bit by giving it some more texture. So you can use a flanger. I believe I used some pitch shifters here, which is a cool technique where you just up it by 12 semitones, and make sure you set compensation to high so it's not out of time here, and then just add the mix in. So now we have something like this. We can use Control and then click on that to duplicate that, and maybe layer a 2-octave version of it. So that's already starting to sound nice. And now we can start with the bit crusher, which is where the main kind of bulk of the sound come in, the main bulk of the texture part here. So let's bit crush this thing here. And we'll take a very fast randomizer. So instead of going up, we're going down to 2/16. And again, making it smooth. And we'll set this to there as well. Make it unipolar, and let's turn this down a little bit. Now we can add our Formant filter, which is going to give it the more vowely feeling here. And with the Formant filter, what I like to do is have two modulations. So this is going to go up and down here, and then we'll use this one as well to go up and down here as well. And we can even add another random if you actually want different values, which is something you might want to do here. So you can set the same timing, and then, for example, set this here. And now you can see it's kind of starting to move around in any direction and kind of choosing the formants that we have here. If you want, you can play with the Q value here. And this is really where you can start to play with which exact knobs really work for your kind of modulation. So here's the kind of main tonal part of it. So how you give it its unique kind of tone, and the real texture form from it is with a delay. And the way you do that is you take the amount of milliseconds that it takes for one waveform to cycle. So I'll leave a link to a chart down below where you can look up frequencies for different keys. And what you can do is you can take 1000 and divide that by the frequency to get the amount of time in milliseconds that it takes for one oscillation. So for D4 or D sharp 4, it is 12.8 milliseconds, which is the one we're going to use. I like them in the 4 octave because that's kind of where the real tone kind of sits. So you get something like this. Let's set the mix up, and as you can see, also pretty high feedback. Now we're clipping a little bit, so let's turn this down a lot. And we're going to add a limiter after this. So you can already hear that we have this nice texture on there, but we can enhance it a little bit more. Let's add some more bit crushing to it on a small mix. This is really there to just give it a bit more high end. But we can also do some EQing, which I showed before. With slice EQ, something cool you can do. Let's say we decide on an EQ shape like this, where we kind of create a more complex EQ shape. What you can then do is have this go up and down as well with this offset. So let's set a lower value here like that, and we'll move this up, and we'll have a different randomizer. Kind of add a little bit of the faster movement to it. You might want to put this before your Formant filter. So you already have the nice kind of texture going and the right kind of vibe here for the texture that we want. And it has a nice high end. For some general mixing, what I'd like to do is, again, get rid of the extreme low end. And for that, we'll use a little bit of a steeper filter here. So 24 dB per octave should do the trick. You can even turn it up a little bit more. And let's turn down the actual Q value on this thing. Okay, now in the third channel, I like to add kind of my ambient effects and the real effects that turn it into the nice texture, into the stereo texture that we get. So for example, delay, a reverb, but we can also use the ensemble, which I've shown off before, which is kind of just like the hyper effect in Serum. So now you have something like this. Something else you can do is to give it a bit more movement, because right now, even though the randomization is like time synchronized, it's not really having the movement that you might want from your texture sound, especially if you're going to use it in a background in like a drop, then you want to have more movement in there. So you can use a transgate, and we're just going to set up a very basic version here with a little bit longer of a release. And then again, we can randomize the mix value here by two different things. And then you can get something like that. Now there's a lot more you can do. For example, you can add more filters to your starting sound. This is going to change the texture that's really going to go into the delay. And therefore also the output texture is going to change. One thing that can really help here is like a very big notch filter. So something like this. And you can set Q amount to randomized, as well as just the filter cutoff in general. So let's set the Q as well. Have that go up and down. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. And the real fun in this is just trying new things out, see what works for the particular sound that you have, turning off effects. Maybe you don't want the kind of texture, the vowely texture to it. You can try to do it without the Formant filter, or maybe the bit crusher as well. Now it has a little bit more of a vowely texture to it. And you can see that even though we kind of use the same approach and the same effects that we used in the last one and the same kind of setup, it's already a very different kind of sound here. It has the same kind of ways to it, but the actual tone of it and the actual quality of it is completely different. And doing this a few times and finding out the best ones and then kind of mixing and matching them is really where it comes into play and where it becomes really interesting to work with these things. So for example, here we have 2 midis or 2 notes in the MIDI. Let's turn this to 1. And then I'll show you a final trick in phase bend as well. Something you can do is if you want to pitch bend this texture, you can set up a macro like this. I'm going to set this to 4% because I think that's also where this one is set. Yeah, 4%. So now we can copy over this thing here and also the macro 1. So we have the same kind of pitch bend in here as well. So you can hear that it sounds really nice in terms of the kind of way it changes the pitch in there. So we're going to freeze both of these, and you'll see that it just creates this randomly generated texture that we can morph between, and then we'll kind of mix them together and turn them into like a cool sequence that you can use as well. As more of a background element in the drop, or just in the breakdown or in an intro. Let's flatten these out. We'll consolidate both of them to right here. And then we'll set both to 0. And now you can just kind of pick parts that you like from each. So for example, so let's say I like this one. I'll create a new audio track where we can just move these on. And then maybe I like this part here. We'll put that right here. And something you can do now is just kind of fade between the two. So we'll set this up like this, where it just kind of fades one in and the other out. And doing that enough creates these textures where you morph between one or another sound. And obviously if you have more sounds and you have more these kinds of textures, you can really go ham on it. And then once again, if you really want to glue everything together, what I recommend in this case is to take an echo and set that on a very long delay. So 1/2 normal notes, something like that. And we'll give it a bit of ping pong and stereo just to make it interesting. And we'll open up the filter. Maybe not so much, something like this, kind of taking the top end off a little bit. Let's play it again so that it doesn't change pitch. You can barely hear that changing at all in this crossfade. When if you have the echo off, you can really hear the change from one tone to the other. So that's really gluing the two sounds together and turning them into something cool and something more cohesive. Again, also something like reverb here can help, and just in general making sure that the dynamics and the volumes are the same. But that's kind of the main way you would go about making these textures, and it's really when you start to combine these and as I said, have a lot of effects and a lot of randomization in this, where it becomes really, really interesting and where you can have a lot of fun in the sound design stage as well. Obviously, the main characteristics are also doable in other synths, and even in Echo itself, if you unsync this, you can just set milliseconds in time. So that's really where one of the main tonal features comes from. Also, if you want a Formant filter, and I'll see if I remember this to leave a link for here. I also have a rack on my channel, which is this Versatile Formant Plugins. There's a free download available. There's one, I did a video on this rack in particular, but it's basically a very complex a formant filter made with the EQs. So you have this formant change here. We have a scale amount, we have a frequency as well, and a resonance. And then you can also add some other effects. Here's like a little trance gate that just does like normal plugs. So you could set this up in the same way, where you set this to 1/16 and then an amount. We have a slope here, which changes the slope, and then an overall dry wet for this rack. So the main effects are also doable in Ableton Live or in any other synth that has formants and a delay that can be unsynced from the host timing. But in Faceband, it's really easy because you also get to see what you're doing, and it shows you the waveforms and it shows you all the modulations and how they're playing around. So that's really where Faceband really shines for this kind of stuff. And just the fact that you can add unlimited effects and you can really tweak it and get in the detail that you want really helps, again, create the exact kind of effect sound that you want, or the exact kind of texture sound that you want. And you can be a lot more complex than something in Serum, which only really has one delay effect. And if you want another one, you'll have to open up an instance of Serum effects, or you have to use an external delay. So in Faceband, it's a little bit more versatile, and that's why I chose to do it in this. Let me know what you think of these kind of videos, if you want to see more Faceband related stuff on here, or if you want me to stick to Serum. Other than that, if you have a specific request for a tutorial that you would like to see, let me know in the comments down below. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed these kinds of more complex techniques. Again, let me know if you do with a like and a comment, or if you want to see something else. If you're new here, subscribe. I'm going to get back into schedule. I'm trying to do a video every other day, but that's a little bit of a hard schedule to catch up. Right now, I'm recording a few days in advance, so that's really nice. I have some time to just slowly edit them and do whatever I need to do before the video has to get out. So that's really nice. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and hope to see you next time. Bye bye.